Rest in the presence and hold space.
Namo Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vigna Karadura Hamari. Jai Ganesha Gananatha Dayaniti Sakala Vigna Karadura Hamari.
Namaste.
Welcome and happy holy days.
Happy whatever holidays you're celebrating.
Holy days.
Holy days. That's right. All days are holy days.
That's true.
But yeah, special time of the year, which I don't mind calling Christmas, although I know people celebrate other things. Yes, and dear friends that just finished celebrating Hanukkah like a couple weeks ago. Hanukkah was very early this year. So whatever you're celebrating, please have a wonderful week. Spend time with your families. This is our weekly online satsang, which means community of truth in Sanskrit. Anywhere two or more people on the spiritual path come together to share their journey, to share their presence with one another, we have what's called a satsang. And it's so important. We're strengthened, and we multiply each other's peace and clarity and inner silence when we come together. So it's so helpful. During these Flowering Heart satsangs, we're sharing something with everyone we call the Flowering Heart Blessing. It's a transmission, actually, of divine presence, divine grace, unconditional love, enlightened awareness, healing presence, and divine union. The Flowering Heart Blessing is something that has probably been around forever, but the Divine showed it to us a little over 6 years ago and said, begin to share this form of blessing with people. And we've been doing it since and seeing just wonderful results. Is it different than other forms of blessing? Well, yes and no. There are so many forms of Shaktipat, of Diksha, of blessing, transference of consciousness and energy. All the great traditions have it. And there are different qualities to them. This one is very much centered in awakening enlightened divine awareness in the heart, in the spiritual heart. When we begin to experience the divine presence within us, the journey is on. We begin to discover our our true self, our original essence, our true teacher, we become increasingly liberated from excessive dependence on things and people and places and rituals and practices outside of ourselves, because we discover progressively, more and more deeply, that what we're seeking is already inside of us, that what we're looking for is us, and that we, our true self, our true essence, is already fully divine and is the very essence of enlightenment. So it's a great discovery, and this blessing goes right to it. Some blessings emphasize awakening, for instance, Kundalini mostly. Some really emphasize opening the upper chakras, different kinds of work. Certainly the Christian baptism of the Holy Spirit has very specific effects and does bring revelation and of our oneness with the divine. But this one that Divine showed us, the Flowering Heart Blessing, causes the spark of divinity within us to begin to flower from the inside, to radiate outward through all the layers of our being: spirit, soul, body, relationships, connections with the world, out to infinity. It's a lovely thing. The Divine said, "This is my gift. This doesn't belong to any master or any particular saint or any particular avatar or organization or hierarchy. This flows directly from Source to whoever wishes to receive it, to help them awaken, be transformed, and deepen in divine union." And because it's a gift of grace, grace means something that we don't work for, we don't earn, we don't jump through hoops, we're not reaping something we've sown that we've earned. It's pure gift, unconditional love given, whether we merit that gift or not. And so the Divine said, this is grace, tell people it's grace, and that's free. It's a gift. Don't charge for this. So, while we have a nonprofit ministry and give courses and things that we encourage and receive donations for, the blessing of divine grace itself is freely given. And it's really not even ours to give. It's something the Divine is giving, and we're just fortunate to be able to serve as vessels, as conduits of divine grace. And the Divine said, so tell people it's free, and tell them the minute they receive this blessing, they are initiated to pass it on to others through intention in prayer, meditation, or through gently laying on of hands on the top of a person's head who's physically in your presence with their knowledge and consent of what they're receiving. So please do share the Flowering Heart Blessing. Just share it freely, and the people that you share this blessing with, who experience that connection with presence, the energy and the awareness of presence, they too are initiated simply by the fact that you shared this blessing with them. So share it far and wide. Tell them that they can give it away too, and that when they share it with people, they're initiated. This should be going viral. And there's a great little video, 36 minutes long, on our website at floweringheart.org that describes it a little more in depth, and there's a guided meditation that takes anyone who watches it through a process of initiation and connection with the Flowering Heart Blessing. So if you want to grab onto something that's a little meatier than my 3-minute introduction, please use that video. You could start a blessing group in your own home or in your own community. If there isn't already one that you relate to and feel comfortable with, you could just open your laptop and hit play. And in 36 minutes, everybody that gathers with you will really understand what's going on and be filled with the presence of this blessing, and you could start sharing it with each other. And that would be lovely. We should all be part of a spiritual community locally. And if we can't find one we're comfortable with, then ask the Divine about being used as an instrument of grace yourself to birth a blessing circle in your community. So this Sunday, which is the day after Christmas, December 20th, time has gotten so strange for me this year. But December 26th, we will be having our monthly Interfaith communion with the Cosmic Christ. And it's always lovely and beautiful to connect with that aspect of the divine that we refer to as the Cosmic Christ, which is basically the same as the God within, the Paramatma, the inner light, that spark of light and divinity that is present at the center of everything in the universe. And so it's totally interfaith. Everyone is welcome to participate. It's 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Sunday morning, 11 to 12:30, just a little past noon. If you can join us, please do. We'd love to have you. What else?
I think that's it. Questions? Oh, drop a like or a love.
Like Linda has already done. Thank you. If you're tuning in tonight, or even if you're watching this in the days ahead, later this week or whenever you arrived here, if you give us a like or a love, one of those little thumbs up or hearts you can find there somewhere on the page, that way we can, after we're done, Suzanne and I click on that link, we get to see people who are with us tonight who may not have been moved or led to make a comment in the chat, which is fine. You can do that or not, which leads us to questions and answers. For the next number of minutes, we'll open it to questions about the spiritual journey, about spiritual practices, about awakening, about God realization, whatever you might like to ask. Incarnation, reincarnation. There's always more light to receive and clarity about different aspects of the spiritual journey. So if there's something that you'd like the divine to give some clarity, some insight, some inspiration about, please share your question with us. And the divine just always shows up and inspires us with insights to share. It helps us all. So we'll wait a few minutes for that. Yeah, it is a blessing being here. Indeed. So, I know you can come up with a question. Somebody emailed me a list of questions, but I thought it was interesting the point that was being made. It seems that many people subscribe to the same sorts of belief systems, things they think one ought to do in life, how the world should be, what is right versus wrong, good versus bad, etc., etc. It seems that a lot of this is a result of the messages being pushed by mass media, as mentioned here, and all of that. But it's happening at every level of society. I mean, it happens with our parents, it happens with our friends. If we're part of a spiritual community or a religious belief system, there's all this conditioning coming at us, telling us how you should think, how you should speak, how you should live, what you should be like. And so this question is talking about indoctrinating people into conformity. Putting people in a box of what they think humanity should look like. Now that's really prevalent, I think, in a lot of spiritual communities. And I've certainly seen the same thing. And the question is this programming not a great misunderstanding of what oneness really is? Isn't it through our individual unique? Yes, that would be a misunderstanding. And the next thread here is, isn't it through our individual uniqueness that we are here as expressions of the divine? I think that's a beautiful insight. While there are certain things we all share in common, for instance, as we become more deeply awakened, we discover that we are one being, that you and I are one being. We all are sharing one being and one consciousness, which is expressing itself in the universe through myriad forms that are in a dance of transformation and change constantly. I mean, the divine being, the universal being, is just exploding creatively. It's still going on. And in the human sphere, there's 7.5 approximately billion of us, and every single one of us, well, if we go deep enough inside, we come to the one love, the one heart, the one light. Every one of us is unique. There's something about you that is uniquely different from anyone else. So yes, our uniqueness here is the way the divine is expressing itself. If we were all meant to have the same experience and viewpoints, wouldn't there be no purpose for us to manifest 7.5 billion human forms? That's a really good point. I agree. Perhaps it's quite a desecration of the spiritual concept of oneness if this sameness is being cast upon humanity. Yeah, oneness is not sameness, and I think that's what's coming out through this thread of questions. And another question from this writer. I've noticed that in some aspects of where I am in life right now seem to be a product of the programming, conditioning, energy of my family. It is sometimes, or is it, and here's the question, is it sometimes a role of children to take on and process and end the energy or karma of the family who may be unable or unwilling or unaware to do so on their own? Yes, with certain reservations. Part of the journey of awakening for most of us is to play our part in releasing and transforming ancestral karma. What we have received from our ancestors, good and bad, all of the abundance that we enjoy today is because of the hard work and the sacrifices of our ancestors. And so there should be gratitude, I think, and recognition and remembrance of them. Also, unfortunately, we carry the weight of ancestral karma. There's also national karma. We may be living in a country that has engaged in its lifetime in injustice and oppression of people. And if that's the case, and we're certainly seeing that play out in the United States these days because of the history of slavery and the relationship with the Native American people when the Europeans first came here, it was just brutal and wrong. And people are just beginning to awaken to the consequences that are affecting all of us and start to work that through. So yes, that is part of what we all deal with. And when you talk about your own family, your parents and siblings of your own nuclear family, we are affected by that. And to some degree, we're going to have to work with that because we're not separate. We're connected beings, and that's our family. But no, we don't have to take on their stuff. And I don't think we should look at what's going on in our lives and sort of blame our families. I used to when I was like an adolescent, I think. And I'd point at my parents and go, I'm screwed up because of you. And that's not really true. And so part of growing up spiritually is to take responsibility for where we are personally in our journey in consciousness. There's this question that's gone around in academic circles for a long, long time. Nature versus nurture. Are you the product of nature? What you received from your genetics, your ancestors deposit in you, what you receive from your parents in terms of just what they handed to you. Nature hands you something. But nurture is what we receive through working on ourselves and other people and the human community nurturing us. So what has a stronger effect? And with criminals, for instance, do people become criminals because of nature? Is it in their nature? Is it because they bear this ancestral thing that's gone down through generations? Or is it nurture? Is it the result of their environment affecting them as they grow? And the answer is both. So, yes, we are affected by our family and the conditioning and the energies that, that we, and especially during holiday times, when often families come together, there are family reunions around the holidays, and we spent a long time talking about that last week, and people's buttons really get triggered, understood. But again, we shouldn't blame the ones that are triggering us, because it's our own charge that's getting triggered. And when someone in the family who's annoying triggers us, it's an opportunity to face that charge, to face that programming within us. It does absolutely no good to say, I have this programming in me because my parents were critical of me at an early age or something. Maybe that's exactly what happened. But if that program's there, just the blame game isn't going to help. And we can't erect walls and push people away. And that's the last thing we want to do with our families and our relationships. We want to embrace whatever arises in love and own that program as being something that has been at play in our subconscious, or even more difficult, the unconscious, and ask for divine grace to help bring that out of the unconscious, out of the subconscious, into awareness, and own it. So those are really good questions. I certainly wouldn't think that the reason I'm here in this family is because I had a contract before I incarnated to deal with this family's karma. That might be true in rare instances, but I think it would be better not to just assume that position. You want to add to that?
Oh, just that last thing you touched on. It's really important for us to own our own stuff and own our own charges and our reactions to things. And as far as, coming into this life with some kind of an agenda or whatever, I think the most important thing that we need to remember is that we're here to learn and we're here to grow and to become more fully human, to be, more heart-centered and have a ripple effect on those that haven't realized this yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Moray asks a beautiful question. It's a broad one, but it gets right to the point, which is, can you speak about how to surrender more and more? That's interesting, isn't it? Because I used to try to surrender. And that's the opposite of surrender. I mean, in meditation, I thought, you're supposed to let go, right? You're supposed to let go and enter the flow, at least get out of your mind and into alpha waves or something. So realizing that I was not surrendered, realizing that there were places of resistance within me, I worked very hard to surrender my resistance, which is the opposite of surrender. Because surrender, on a certain level, like in meditation, is when you just let go, stop trying. So how do you surrender? Well, I think it's very natural. And if we're talking about surrender to the divine presence, that in itself is a gift. I believe surrender is a happening. So surrender happens more and more as our connection and relationship with the presence, with the divine presence, deepens more and more. The fruit of it will be deeper and deeper surrender. I think it depends on what tradition you're in, but recently pointed to the 9 stages of Bhakti Yoga, because I know we have a lot of friends that are part of the yoga tradition and into Indian spirituality and meditation, have been for many years, perhaps you have been. And the great masters of the Himalayas said that the fastest way to become enlightened, to become God realized in the Kali Yuga, the dark age that we're just beginning to emerge from, is bhakti. It's the path of love, surrender, and devotion. And, you know, when I first heard about that, I thought, oh, that's kind of dull. I want to do Kundalini yoga, you know, light myself on fire, and I want 1 billion volts of divine energy going through me. I want to see lights and colors and have visions of deities, you know, and have all those spiritual experiences, which it turns out have not much to do with enlightenment, but it's fun. And I enjoyed all these different kinds of yoga I could refer to. My main practice through the years has been Taoist Negong, or Nuigong, which is internal alchemy, which is sort of the Taoist Chinese form of Kundalini yoga. It's very powerful. And you feel and experience things. And I think that's very reinforcing, you know, and you're wanting to feel like you're getting somewhere. we find out more and more there's nowhere to go and nothing to do. Just be here now and let go. And it all happens quite spontaneously. But in bhakti, the first stage is listening or hearing. And it's to hear or to read, to hear the words, the teachings of the great enlightened ones. So, you know, if you're a Hindu, it might be the Bhagavad Gita. If you're a Taoist, it might be the Tao Te Ching. Certainly, if you're of the Judeo-Christian tradition, it might be the Hebrew or the Christian scriptures. There's so many beautiful teachings that have come to humanity through great awakened, enlightened beings who have become one with the divine. And so the path of bhakti begins by hearing about the divine. And as you meditate on those truths that are being revealed, the path unfolds. I'm not going to go through all 9 stages tonight, but what happens is you begin to have an actual connection with the presence as you meditate in the Word and the great teachings. And that deepens into, a lot of people love to dance in the spirit, kirta, to chant, and the sacred, whether it's mantra or whether it's a spiritual hymn, there's that singing from the heart, that celebration and dance, and all of that deepens beyond ritual into a heart of service. And actually, a lot of us knew, and may still know, a lot of monks in India that go by the name of Dasa. That's their title. And Ram Das, for that word Das, Bhagavan Das, that's describing someone that's reached the stage of Bhakti Yoga that's called Dasya, which is to be a servant, a true servant of the divine. Which is the beginning of selfless service, of seva. And that's so beautiful, but you know, that's 2 steps away from level number 9. The next level, beyond being a servant, is being a friend. The friend of the divine. And then the final, the 9th stage, after all of that, which began with just hearing about the divine and the relationship and connection with the presence deepening, the final stage is the gift of self, where the separate self is freely given. And I guess, you know, that is true surrender. But it isn't something the ego's doing. It's something that the heart has flowered. It's just natural. Like when you're in love with someone, you don't try to love someone. You just do. You just love them, and the heart spontaneously is flowering in relationship with this person or persons that you're in love with. And that's what happens with the divine. So surrender is a happening as it unfolds. A real simple way to say the same thing is in the Christian mystical tradition. It's called Lectio Divina, which literally means divine reading. But it's much more than like reading the writings of saints and the scriptures. Lectio Divina has 4 simple stages, and it mirrors what we just said about bhakti in its essence. Because the first stage is lectio, which means to listen or to read, and it means to learn about the divine presence, to learn about the greatness of the presence and the wonder. And then once you've received some of that knowledge, the second stage is meditatio, or to meditate with the mind and the heart on the truths that you've heard, that you've read, and you meditate on it until the heart catches on fire and it becomes like a burning love in the heart, and that leads to oratio, which is Latin for prayer. But not just prayer like asking for things, it's the spontaneous prayer of a heart that's on fire with love for the divine. It's the climax of the divine romance. And then that leads to the 4th stage, which is contemplatio, or contemplation, and that is silent absorption in oneness with the divine. Pure gift. That's the real surrender. And it's absolutely, in the mystical Christian tradition, understood as an infused grace. In other words, something that the divine itself, by pure grace, infuses into the heart at the right time. But that's the fruit of having spent time learning, reading, or just even listening to the miracles and the works of the divine, meditating on those truths until they come alive in your heart, letting the heart express the celebration we were talking about in bhakti, and that taking you across the threshold into emptiness, oneness, interior silence. Well, an old friend of mine, a very, very great Christian master, Thomas Keating, who is one of the fathers of centering prayer, was teaching a group of people those 4 stages of Lectio, and there happened to be a Baptist preacher in the audience. How unlikely now, because this form of prayer was initially taught by Trappist monks to people that were part of the mystical, sacramental, Catholic and Orthodox traditions. And here's this Baptist preacher, and he's taking it all in, and Keating is wondering if he's actually getting it. And this Baptist preacher gets so excited, it's like he leaps to his feet and says, I get it. I've been doing just what you said for my entire Christian life. He said, here's the way it works for me. I read myself full. I think myself clear. I pray myself hot, and I let myself go. And Keating went, wow, he got it. That was so simply said, So the point is that whatever tradition you're in, there are similarities to the divine romance. It begins with an introduction. And after the introduction, you don't dive into the deepest level of surrender right away. You begin to cultivate that relationship with the presence, and it naturally unfolds for you.
There was something a couple weeks ago, Michael told a story about a man who wanted Jesus to heal, resuscitate, revive his child, and he had a prayer. He said, what was it? Help me with my unbelief.
He wanted his child was at the verge of death. She hadn't died yet. And Jesus said, okay, I'll come heal her. But all these people came from this guy's house and said, don't trouble the master, your daughter's already dead. And Jesus said, fear is useless. Only believe. And the guy seemed to get it in his heart, and he realized, if I can just believe and let the fear go, then who knows what might happen? All things are possible. And so he turns to Jesus and said, Lord, I do believe. Help my unbelief. He realized that he was divided on the inside.
Right. And so that's another way to practice surrender is by asking for help with surrender. Because oftentimes I think, if we're thinking, I don't know how to surrender, I'm trying to surrender, that's still coming from the mind and the ego. And real surrender, like Michael said, comes from the unfolding of the heart. And so if we're in that space where it's like, I can't surrender, I can't let go, then pray and ask for help. Ask, help me surrender, help me let go. And just keep returning to the heart. And the mind and ego feel like they need to control things, and they need to know the answers, and they need to just dictate our lives. And the more that we keep returning to the divine presence within, the more that becomes a natural state of surrender.
Yep. Yeah. So it's quite a process.
Is there something over there?
Yeah, I'll come right back to it. Okay. It's just checking the follow-up there. Okay. Tayville writes, we seem to be a combination of a spirit that reincarnates from being to being, and the physical body that is the genetic product of our ancestors, which includes all those pesky survival instincts, personality traits, etc. Your take? Well, yeah. We are spirits expressing through bodies. There's just one thing left out there that accompanies us from one incarnation to the next. It would be a lot easier if at the end of this incarnation, my spirit simply left this body, and then it would be free from all of those pesky instincts, personality traits, etc. But the thing is that those certain personality traits, what in India are called karmic tendencies that we haven't worked out in this life within ourselves, we take with us. And we get to work on that after we leave the body and in consequent incarnations. As we grow personally and we transform our own vasanas. What we are is we are spirits. Yes, we are the one spirit. And we have this bag of, Sri Bhagwan in India always called it a bag of personalities. And that's a good way to look at it. But the word is vasana, and it's literally a karmic tendency. We're a bag of them. And so that's a lot about the journey after death into before the next incarnation is dealing with some of that stuff. So in the Western spiritual traditions, it's called the soul. And in the Bible, you'll read that a human being is spirit, soul, and body. And that the divine presence desires us to be whole, to be healed in all those levels of our being. I mean, the divine wants to heal our bodies. The divine definitely wants to enlighten our spirits and liberate them. But the divine also wants to make our souls whole and healed. And the soul is that realm where human will, tendencies, programming, charges, thoughts, all of that pesky stuff is part of that soul realm. So if you looked at the 5 koshas or 6 koshas, depending on who your teacher is, these are the sheaths that surround Atma, God, or the divine being at the center of you. There are these layers, and we don't need to go through them all, but the outermost layer is your physical body. And what happens at the time of transition is you drop the physical body. But there are other layers of your being that are still intact, which is why there's a being that can go from incarnation to incarnation. Because if we just dissolved back into the ocean of infinity, there would no longer be that single individuated being that goes through multiple incarnations. I'm sorry, that may be like distasteful to those who don't like mystical philosophy, but I think it's a really good question, and it's true. It's been said that we are spirits having a human experience,
or animal.
Actually, we're angelic beings having a human experience, having an animal experience. That body, that pesky body. But the body itself can be transformed gloriously in this life. I've known people that to lesser or greater degrees have been so transformed in their spiritual journey through life that their physical bodies glow. They have a glow that some of us can see, called an aura. But their bodies are full of light and life and energy, and you just get close to them and you can feel it. So, yep.
Okay.
Alrighty. So, if your eyes are still open, why don't you go ahead and close them and just relax into the center of your being, where you are already. Nowhere to go, nothing to do, just be where you are. And there, in the center of your being, connect with the presence. Welcome the presence of the divine at the center of your spiritual heart. There's no effort here at all. The divine's just waiting for us to pay attention and invite it, to welcome it. The divine is always drawing us into its loving embrace. That's what love is. It's the divine drawing us into oneness with itself. This presence is not far from you. It is your true self. It is your original nature and essence. As soon as we let go of our distractions and attachments to the outer world and turn our attention inward to the center, the divine very spontaneously begins to draw us into its embrace. There's no struggle. Just let yourself be loved and receive the flowering heart blessing that is pouring out to you from the center of your being and from all around you and from above. For the presence is everywhere. In the presence we live and move and have our being. It knows already what you need and how to give it to you, how to make that happen for you. So just relax and receive. Never hurts to ask for help, but there's no need to beg or persuade or convince the divine. Just ask and begin to drink in and receive the grace pouring out to you. eyes still closed, imagine or visualize we're all sitting in a circle together. Lift up your hands with your palms open, facing forward, and invite the presence to pour the flowering heart blessing through you as a vessel, as an instrument, to all the others in the circle, as they are doing the same, and it's coming back to you through them. You have a particular burden, weight, or pain you're carrying tonight, put it in the middle of the circle and see it healed, transformed. See the outcome you desire, and we all take a strong intention with you tonight for a miracle of grace in your life. Life or lives of the loved one or ones that you're praying for. Visualize in the center of the circle the beautiful blue planet Earth we're living on, with 7.5 billion quirky humans, embodiments of the One. And let us take a strong intention and ask the Divine to flood the Earth and all of humanity with the peace of God that passes all understanding. May hearts throughout the world be flooded with inner peace, flooded with the light of grace, flooded with the grace of awakening, the flowering of the heart. Like to invite you, when you're ready, to slowly open your eyes and begin to make direct eye contact with Suzanne and or me. Just keep looking at one of our eyes. That's all you need to do during the light meditation. Suzanne and I are flooded with the presence and the grace and the unconditional love, and the light begins to flow through every pore of our being to you, especially through our eyes, which is why they've been called the doorways of the soul. That light, if you just keep looking at one of our eyes, will stream in through your eyes, flood your spiritual heart with grace, causing the fires of divine love, awakening, and transformation in you to burn brighter and brighter. There's nothing you need to do, but just keep looking. within. Feel free to keep meditating as long as you like, or lie in Shavasana nearby. Find a place to lie down on your back. Your eyes closed, your arms loosely at your sides, with your palms open. Turn upward, and just let yourself dissolve in gratitude in the presence. We love you a lot. And we hope that whatever you're celebrating this winter solstice season, whatever holy days you're celebrating, may they be filled with blessing and grace and peace. Merry Christmas and much love until we cross paths again.
Yeah.
Until then, the divine in us beholds the divine in you, and we bow to you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Love you so much.